The 1960 black and white classic horror film Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, is one of the clearest examples of the Master of Suspense's mastery of suspense. Several iconic scenes throughout the film display Hitchcock's proficiency in using bold techniques and cinematic language to create and maintain tension, such as when the suspicious highway patrolman watches Marion across the street from a used car lot, or when private investigator Arbogast sneaks into the Bates house, or, of course, in the shower scene. However, it is perhaps the subtlest of this film's collection of suspense sequences that best illustrates his ability to gradually and subtly introduce tension into a scene. The scene in question takes place roughly 35 minutes into the movie, when Norman invites his new motel guest to join him for dinner in his back parlor after just having been heard arguing with his mother.
Shut up! Shut up!
The scene begins with a medium shot, which pans with Norman as he enters the parlor with a dinner tray and turns on the lights. The lighting is harsh and dramatic, casting long, well-defined shadows across the room, giving the scene a strange, artificial mood. The far corner of the room is the one most shrouded in darkness, and is where Norman sits. This is to reflect his hidden thoughts and secret motives throughout the scene, and the partial lighting of his face may also suggest his split psyche. Marion, by contrast, is well illuminated by the nearby lamp, and has almost her whole face visible in the light. This is to afford the audience the chance to better read her facial expressions, and shows her openness and vulnerability. The scene continues for a few minutes with medium stationary shot reverse shots of Marion and Norman. The torso-level camera placements and consistent editing brings the viewer into the conversation, until this pattern is broken when Marion says something unfavorable about Norman's mother. The editing, up until now, has prioritized Marion's reactions to what Norman is saying above anything else, but at this mention of mother, we cut to Norman's reaction as the jovial mood he has warmed up to over the course of the conversation suddenly drops and he sits silently. The lower angle of the shot frames Norman in a position of power, filling, domineering, and leaning into the whole frame. The direct side angle is also similarly as disorienting to the viewer as the misplaced comment by Marion must have been to him. Marion stares back without saying anything, looking almost nervous now, before cutting back to Norman, talking confidently about standing up to his mother. But he admits he can never do so, and sits back in his chair. This makes him become much smaller and out of place in the frame, demonstrating the way Mother robs Norman of all his faculty and self-confidence. Also, when he leans back, Norman's taxidermy is seen clearly displayed in the center of the background. The birds likely represent Norman's fear of Mother and foreshadow her true fate. The scene then falls back into a similar shot-reverse shot pattern, now in a medium close-up of Marion and a profile shot of Norman, where his face is almost completely in shadow. The motivation behind this is likely that this is the point in the conversation where Norman is most dishonest, sharing a false account of his childhood and his mother's misfortunes. When Marion implies Norman might put his mother in a madhouse, the scene cuts back to Norman in a close-up, where he leans forward into the frame. This movement towards the viewer conveys Norman's defensiveness at the suggestion, as he seems almost angry and offended as he shoots down the idea. The whole scene up to this point has been silent, except for dialogue. This helps to emphasize the awkward gaps between speaking, after Norman says one of several odd or concerning things. Dissonant, quiet strings begin to fade in, holding on long notes once Norman almost goes full psycho, talking about how he believes others are judgmental. This is done to sonically reflect the internal tension within Norman, and the suspense Marion or the viewer might feel now that Norman has accidentally let slip a dark, twisted facet of his personality. He eventually snaps out of it and leans back, releasing the apparent tension of the moment. We cut back to a reaction of Marion's relief. Then, Norman leans back forward into the frame, his face taking up the whole screen to say the most unsettling thing he has yet.
She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
At last, he leans back, and Marion stands up in the same medium close-up shot as before. The camera tilts up with her, which helps transition to the next cut back to Norman, which is from a higher angle, mirroring her perspective. The camera pans with her as she walks out, in a shot similar to the first.